When The Acolyte was announced, I was genuinely excited. I thought starting a live-action story in a fresh era of Star Wars was going to give the writers a lot of room to tell stories without having to worry about butting up against existing content or stepping on it. I was enjoying the High Republic publishing initiative for the most part, so everything looked good on paper. I watched the series as it aired, week to week. It was the first live-action series to debut since I started my channel, so I was really excited to cover it and get into conversations with all of you. Those initial reaction videos are still out there, and they're painfully optimistic. I went back through them and cringed at myself just a year ago. Every week, I was deflated a little bit more and holding on to hope that somehow in the end they would tie it all together. It was marketed as something of a mystery show, so I thought all of these plot holes and bizarre character decisions would be tied up and start to make sense. As I was watching it, I planned on rewatching the entire series again after the finale to see if it all made more cohesive sense that way. But as it ended, I just didn't have it in me to start it up again. This video is going to discuss The Acolyte a year on, and I'm not going to get into much of the behind-the-scenes issues with it. That's been well covered, and it really honestly just doesn't even interest me. If you want a deeper, looser form discussion, my buddy Noah and I on Review Harvest do dive into all of our feelings on The Acolyte, so you can check that out if you're looking for more. The first episode starts strong. The show looks great. It feels like Star Wars. It throws a lot of things at you that you're excited to have answered later on. The Force Kung Fu is awesome, and even the way that May gets the upper hand on a more skilled Andorra is well handled. It's believable. All of this positivity only lasts on the first watch. The second time through, knowing that the characters and story never pays any of this off. In fact, that's like a theme for the show. Most of the seeds that are planted never grow. They never come to fruition. The majority of the characters never become fully fleshed out three-dimensional beings. They're these 2D cardboard cutouts that react to things or say things simply to get from one scene to the next with no thought of what came before or what might come down the line. I do want to say that this is the characters that I have an issue with. None of the performances. The cast I actually found was pretty stacked in this show. The first couple of episodes of the series promise a lot, and even on a rewatch, they hold pretty strong as solid TV. Some of the big standouts for me are the Force Kung Fu, the lore about Jedi not pulling their saber unless they intend to kill, and mysteries involving both the Stranger and the fact that Osha and May are twins. The Force Kung Fu is the only thing in that mix that stands out for being awesome. As good as the saber combat is later on, and we'll get to that for sure, the Force Kung Fu fades out quickly and isn't revisited. The Jedi saber lore. I don't even know what the intent was with this. It was either some new lore that is immediately and repeatedly ignored, or it was something that May was told but were never given a reason or a hint as to why. As for the mysteries, the Stranger thing is obvious the second we meet Chimera, and the girls being twins was solved in the posters before the show even debuted, and is flat out said before we're even an hour into the series. If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe. Another theme I found with this show, it's a show of not tying up loose ends and unfulfilled promises. The fifth episode introduces the show that we should have gotten. A bunch of Jedi on a distant remote planet trying to figure out who and what Chimera is. This could and should have taken a page out of the Legends novel Darth Maul Shadowhunter. Chimera even says that anyone who's ever seen him has to die. If the show took more of a horror movie approach, with Chimera being the awesome unstoppable killer, hunting Jedi down with some incredible choreography, this series would be celebrated rather than maligned. The action in this fifth episode is outstanding. The fact that most of the Jedi that are killed were basically lambs to the slaughter as their characters who were brought in just for this and weren't even really given names, that can be forgiven for the coolness of the combat. One thing that I really loved was the incredible on-screen use of cortosis. This is also one of the few threads that get to start and actually gets a satisfying tie-up later on. Getting into the characters and starting with the positive is Chimera. The villain is easily my favorite character and the only one that I can feel confident in calling a character. Manny Jacinto absolutely crushes the intensity, the physicality, and even the lightheartedness needed to bring Chimera to life. His lightsaber scenes are some of the best, if not the actual best, saber combat since the prequel trilogy. His speed and brutality is perfect for the audience's eyes, but also his character. Unfortunately, even for the best character with the clearest wants and path, he has some major gaps in his writing. He has a Jedi past that we know Vernestra was once his master, but since she believed him long dead, we get nothing else on that. He has scars from Vernestra's light whip, a unique weapon introduced as a bug zapper and never brought up again. He's been training May, but for how long? How directly? Does he just train her in combat or with the Force? When did he find her? How did he find her? He's not much older than her, but has some lines implying that he's way older than that. Is any of this true, or are they just more threads dropped in to not tie up later on? I'd take a spin-off on just him, leaving everything else Acolyte out of it. Jecki was a character that I didn't put much thought into the first time around, but I saw how strong her character is on this rewatch. Granted, when I say strong, it is relative to the complete lack of strong writing in the other characters, as we don't get to spend much time with her. But she's consistent and acts as a Jedi. She's a character, not a plot mover. Vernestra is the one character who let me down the most. She was one of my favorite characters from the novels. Too many of the Jedi in the novels get involved in non-Jedi things, like romantic entanglements. There is way too much of that in the High Republic Publishing Initiative. I don't need that kind of drama in my Jedi, and neither does Book Vernestra. She also embodies Jedi ideals like selflessness and compassion. The on-screen version of her is almost the total opposite. She's deceitful. She creates at least one massive cover-up. She scapegoats a fellow Jedi. She even, presumably as the show cuts, tells Yoda all of this. This portrayal of her didn't just ruin her character in the series, but I haven't been able to pick up the next High Republic novel or comic in the entire year since this character was ruined for me on screen. Yoda's appearance, it's only for a second, but the implications around that are awful. Either Vernestra tells him about the cover-up and he's complicit in it, or she lies to him and the 800-year-old Jedi Grandmaster can't tell. Painting Yoda as either corrupt or stupid is egregious. My biggest gripe with the series as a Star Wars series is the show's lack of care for the Jedi and their philosophies. Apart from Jecki, none of the Jedi act like Jedi. Two of the Masters are basically petulant children, and they show all the signs that they should fall to the dark side with their lies, selfishness, and in Soul's case, heightened emotional outbursts. Yord is introduced as the Boy Scout, the rule-abiding Jedi new to the rank of Knight, and eager to let everyone know that he's a Jedi Knight. He's introduced that way, but flips erratically based on what the scene needs, only acting in ways that gets the story onto the next disjointed scene. Torben inexplicably rises from whiny Padawan to Jedi Master and then stays in a bubble for a full decade. How did he reach Master status, but the general Jedi hero, the chosen one, Anakin Skywalker, was not given the rank? Osha and May are twin characters that represent two halves of a single person. A concept that initially seems intriguing, but ultimately leads nowhere meaningful. They have no problem being separated. Their dark side origin should have came into play. It should have led them down the dark path since they are literally embodiments of the dark side, but the series neglects this as well. There's 16 years between the flashback episodes and the present day episodes, and I haven't even mentioned the fact that the first of the flashback episodes is completely useless since the second one retreads all the same ground. In those 16 years, May is training in the dark side as an assassin. This intense conditioning, it's a revenge-driven thing. She's presumably told every day that the Jedi are evil and she has to get into it. The second she learns her sister is alive, she just changes her entire personality, abandons her whole 16-year mission, and forgets to go after the Jedi. The Jedi killed her family, according to the flashback episodes. Osha also makes a sudden switch, and I predicted early on the first time through that these two characters would switch sides. I just thought it would make some kind of sense. Chimera murders everyone Osha knew in her life as her time training as a Jedi before she walked away, right in front of her, and then she just goes with him. There is something here that a lot of people had a hard time with that I did not rub up against at all, and that is Plagueis being involved and being the one to manipulate the Force to create the girls. I don't see how this undermines Anakin Skywalker's story in any way. Plagueis had been trying to manipulate the Force to create life. He found this group of witches who, again, use just the dark side and finds a dark side Force nexus. It's even established that this nexus is creating life. That's why the Jedi are on the planet at all, seeing how all of this life came to be in the last couple years. His experiment doesn't work. That's why the girls are 2 instead of 1. But Anakin was not made by Plagueis. Anakin was not made by any mortal being. Anakin was created by the Force as an answer to the rising unbalance of the dark side. So I don't really see how one has anything to do with the other. I understand what the series wanted to say, at least I think I do. Actions, even those with the best intentions, can lead to disaster. Soul's decision to save the girls spirals into tragedy, but without clear motivation or depth, the whole thing is hollow. Watching the series removed from the rabid discourse and behind-the-scenes drama did give me a different perspective on it. Last year's optimistic me who wanted to love this is gone. But the show is not this unforgivable abomination that it's remembered as. Don't get me wrong, it is not good, but there is a good show somewhere buried deep inside this mess that we got. With another pass on the scripts and a much more concentrated story, there would have been time for things like character development and logic that are missing entirely from the version that we got. A year removed, my emotional response to the show is no longer anger or disappointment. It's actually sadness. The show looks incredible, it has a talented cast, and big money was backing it up. This could have been, and should have been, a great entry into the Star Wars saga. The abysmal reception didn't just hurt this show, it hurt the franchise. Many fans left, likely never to return. Even the solid skeleton crew and exceptional Andor did not get as much viewership as they deserved because they followed this show. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Today's video is sponsored by me. Imperial Remnant now has a merch store, and it's not just designs specific to the channel. I'm working with a couple talented artists to bring you unique Star Wars themed designs. Check out the link in the description. Alright, back to the lore. The failure of the Acolyte is also a big reason why Lucasfilm may be shelving live-action series for a while. I'm all for more Star Wars in the theater. That is really where it belongs, especially when done right. But I would like to see more series as well, as long as it's quality over quantity. To try to wrap things up on a high note, the series does excel technically. The cinematography, visual effects, sets, costumes, and score are all exactly what I wanted from a Star Wars project. The amount of aliens walking around completes this universe. Seeing Jedi Padawans training in the temple is a cool visual. Sadly, even trying to be positive is a deflating endeavor. These elements, all being done so right, call even more attention to how poorly the scripts came out. The silver lining may be all that the sets, props, and costumes could be repurposed for future Star Wars projects. Not only do we know that they look great on screen, but it could save the next production that much more money, which could lead to more Star Wars content. The Acolyte was supposed to bring the High Republic era to a more casual Star Wars fan. Instead, it set things way back. Thanks to the novels and comics, this era does have a strong and dedicated fan base. And yes, even this series has a contingent of loyal fans. I think it's important to remember that everyone experiences Star Wars in a different way, and your least favorite part of the franchise might be someone's favorite. If it worked for you, I'm psyched for you, and I wish it did for me too. This video is in no way trying to convince anyone to not like something that they enjoy. As a fan of the lore and the franchise, I remain hopeful for the future of the franchise, even if this was a big miss for me. I'm confident that when we get more stories from this galaxy far, far away, it's going to bounce back. Check out this video next to dive into more Star Wars lore.